Today I will be proposing a piece that is a dance done to spoken word about the dangers of prion diseases as well as zoonotic diseases in general in causing global pandemics, and how that relates to environmental issues and public health. So the story of the dance is going to be this person who is set in this dystopian future where the prion disease that we know of in deer, called chronic wasting disease, which is far more contagious than any kind of prion disease we see in humans, is not successfully controlled with our environmental efforts, and it jumps to humans like many diseases, including COVID-19, have done. It jumps from an animal to a human, in this case the deer in Pennsylvania, and jumps to humans and starts a global pandemic, which, because prion diseases are so deadly and we really have nothing to combat it, causes the death of the majority of human beings on the planet. For some background information, prion diseases are another form of infectious disease. It's like, if you think of the organizational structure, you have bacteria, which are full living organisms, then viruses, which are like kind of living, then you have prions, which are infectious diseases caused by just these misshapen folded proteins that can get transmitted between people or species in different ways depending on the strain of the disease. But once you have it, it causes a condition known as a transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, which is basically the way that the protein is misshapen causes reactions which end up eating holes in your brain until you die. And we have no way to treat it. It's not alive, so you can't kill it. There's really not anything we can do other than palliative care when humans do get it. There are a couple versions of it in humans. One, I think the most common, is called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, and I think there are some subvariants of that as well. And then there was one founded a population in New Guinea that was called Kuru, and so the ones in humans typically are very difficult for them to pass between humans. You have to have like some very direct, like, bodily fluid contact. For instance, the one in Kuru was happening because people were eating the brains of their deceased loved ones as part of their death rituals, and the eating of the brains meant that they were consuming these proteins which got to them. So it's not really something that could be a pandemic in the forms that we have in humans today, but the chronic wasting disease that we see in deer has been growing rapidly in the past few years. It used to be just in like very select populations of captive deer. Now it's spreading throughout many states in the US, including Pennsylvania, in the wild deer populations, and it's even starting to be found in other countries. I believe some Asian countries and some Northern European countries have had like captive populations of deer that have seen the spread there. So it can be very dangerous and very contagious, because I believed even just like contact with urine from an infected deer can cause another deer to be infected, and while it is always lethal, it does take a long time to kill them, and they're infectious for a long period of time, and so they're leaving these bits of the prions all over the place, and we really don't know how or if we could clean it up. So the best thing we can do is to try to like track it and make sure that we're not like consuming meat from infected deer and trying to just contain it as much as we can right now and hope that it never jumps to humans. But in my piece, we are in the theoretical scenario that this disease has jumped to humans, and now humans are dealing with this very transmissible, extremely deadly disease running rampant. And it's kind of a PSA on what could happen if we don't take action now to stop the environmental encroachment that we are having on animal populations, which is causing so many diseases to jump from animals to humans. Like, pretty much all of the huge pandemic diseases have been caused by jumping from animals to humans. Everything from HIV, the plague, and COVID-19 was believed to have jumped from a bat originally. So, and then we kind of, in the words, take a look at like some of the bigger pandemics over the past few hundred years and how they really have been like a warning and some alarm bells that we need to wake up and pay attention, and we can't just go back to normal after this current pandemic is over. We really need to focus on what we can do for the future and prepare and make sure that our public health systems are ready, and we are doing everything we can environmentally to prevent new diseases to jump from animals to humans. And so this kind of worst case scenario is a little bit of this person being a little accusatory towards the people before her who lived through these pandemics, or at least the most recent one, and didn't do anything about it and didn't prepare. And so this kind of saying like, we need to prepare so that we won't let this happen. So yeah, here is my dance. Prions. Everyone could have seen it coming. In medieval times, a strain of bacteria we call the Black Plague wiped out 1/3 of the population of Europe. Then just over a century later, these Europeans brought their bacteria and their viruses to the New World to kill 90% of the indigenous people with smallpox and cholera and measles and typhus. In the midst of the First World War, a new enemy burst onto the scene and killed far more than the violence could. The Spanish flu. A new kind of pandemic now on a global scale. And then there's 2020, when a virus, a little ball of RNA, upended our existence all over the world. You would think we would have learned our lesson. You would think we would have prepared with the warning we were given. We would have stopped destroying the natural borders between us and the animals that could protect us from these zoonotic diseases. We would have put money towards the research of these diseases, towards programs that would stop the disease in the animals before it could get to us. But we didn't. We let these prions, these tiny, infectious, misshapen proteins that used to be one of the rarest forms of infections in humans, but killed every single one it did infect, poking literal holes in their brains, as their alternative condition title describes: transmissible spongiform encephalopathies. We let the extremely contagious strain of this disease type we call chronic wasting disease jump from the wild deer of Penn's woods to the careless hunters who weren't properly warned or controlled. Our antibiotics and vaccines were useless. Prions aren't alive, even by the widest of definitions, so there's no way to kill them. Our medicines could do little outside of palliative care, and our public health was in no place to fight the contagion. We had ignored the warnings. The scientists, the public health specialists, the environmentalists. And now, with so few of us left, not enough to bury the dead even if we could chance going near them, So many little things, a swim in a creek, a scrape on a knee, a scratch from a tree, even a breath of fresh air, could be the end.